This 640 horsepower SRT Viper has been reimagined with a new lease on life. But what happens when this lighter, more powerful, and electronically enhanced supercar goes face to face against a heavily modified 16-year-old GTS coupe that's pushing even more horsepower and seriously bolstered suspension and brakes? Who'll come out on top in this Viper versus Viper face-off? The analog hot rod or the technological newbie? Come along as we explore each car's limits at the track and let the lap times decide the winner. I know what you're thinking. How is it fair to compare the latest, greatest Viper to its 16-year-old former self? Well, to level the playing field, we found a second-gen Viper that's been modded to within inches of its adrenaline-infused life. This 1997 GTS specimen sports signature blue and white paint, but that's practically the only thing that's stock on this beast. The pride and joy of Rob and Kathleen Buckles of Simi Valley, California. This bad boy boasts a mile-long build sheet with a Stage 6 Super Tuner kit built by Dan Cragen at Specialty Performance Team. Its 8-liter V10 produced a modest 450 horsepower when new, but now spins a stunning 571 horsepower at the rear wheels, for an estimated crank output of nearly 660 horsepower, making this curvy old guy more powerful than the brand new Viper. Brakes have been uprated to 6-piston Willwoods, and virtually no mechanical stone has gone unturned. From the performance lifters, striker heads, and reworked suspension to the full ATP thermal insulation kit and screaming 5-into-1 Burns header with Borla 3 catback exhaust pipes. Vipers developed a reputation for being unmanageable beasts when they hit public roads in 1992, but federal mandates for ABS and stability control allowed gradual refinements which pulled some of the venom out of the poisonous snake. However, a day at the track with soft compound Pirelli P0 Corsa tires at near freezing temperatures reminded us that this curvy animal can still be quite the handful. You climb inside the 2013 SRT Viper, and immediately it feels like a different animal. It's so much more civilized with this leather-wrapped interior and all these nice little details. It feels almost like a normal car, but all you have to do is grab this thick-rimmed steering wheel, drop the pedal, and know that it is still a Viper. Sure, it's more refined and it's got all these creature comforts and navigation and cruise control, of course, traction control, stability control, ABS, all the things that were not on the original car. But when you really lay into this car, you feel like that soul comes through. It just has that incredible punch that you can't get from any other engine. 8.4 liters, 10 cylinders, 640 horsepower, and the most torque produced by any naturally aspirated automotive engine, 600 pound-feet of torque. So from the driver's seat, you've got all these great Viper trademarks. You've got a really thick steering wheel, you've got a baseball-sized shift knob, and you've got this slightly awkward seating position because of this massive transmission tunnel. But there's so much refinement done to this car that the transmission tunnel doesn't burn up your right knee. You're not getting obnoxious levels of volume in the cabin. It's still loud and you still feel that engine, but it just doesn't deafen you. It's still got that raw energy behind it. It feels like a couple of generations ahead. It's not just your typical facelift, massage a little more power out of the engine and tweak it a little bit and call it a new car. This really feels like an all-new car. The view over this Viper hood is still kind of iconic, but it's not nearly as intimidating as it is in the second-gen version. The tachometer is digital now, you have all these bells and whistles. You need to drive it a lot faster to get a kick out of it. It's almost like it's got a higher pain threshold. But don't let the niceties fool you. When you push this car, it bites. What's it like to drive this souped-up throwback after piloting the Herculean new car? Simply put, the old Viper demanded a steep learning curve, particularly when it came to threshold braking on cold tires with powerful stoppers that lack an anti-lock function. even just seated low in these seats in this 97 Viper with this massive hood over you, you feel like you're sitting inside the car. It's definitely more dramatic. You really feel Carroll Shelby's kind of roots. You feel that rough, raw, unrefined 1960s muscle car aesthetic. So while the stock version of this car back in 97 only put about 450 horsepower out, adding about 200 horsepower with these tuning modifications brings it a lot closer to the power to weight ratio of the new car. So sure, you'd probably rather have the new car on a 1,200 mile road trip, but when it comes to tearing up a track and having a good time when no cops are around, this car might be more entertaining. There's something great about having these analog gauges on the dash too, you know, sort of that traditional muscle car thing really works for this car. It just feels authentic, it feels real, and it feels old school. It has these great unrefinements in terms of noise, vibration, and harshness. So for a 1,200 mile road trip, you know, it might be an easy choice to pick the new car with all of its plush interior features and comforts and amenities. But for a rip-roaring time around a racetrack, you know, it's really hard to beat the pucker factor of driving an old car like this.
After a day of flinging these high-horsepower toys across the track, it was finally time to see if the old snake could keep up with the new. The new Viper's confidence-inspiring handling and bacon-saving electronics helped it score a best lap time of 1:10.5 with traction and stability controls in sport mode. But the big surprise was that our fastest time with all systems off was only 0.2 of a second slower, especially notable considering its daunting pucker factor. In our experience, setting the suspension to the stiffer race mode didn't deliver the same confidence as the standard setting, which allowed for more body roll and less twitchiness. As for the old Viper, our desire to keep that analog relic on the track kept us from flogging it at 11/10. But that didn't mean we didn't have an ass-kicking good time strapped into its 5-point racing harness. At the end of the day, the 97 GTS's best lap time came in at 1:12.5, 2 seconds behind the new car, a rather respectable time, especially considering its 16-year technological disadvantage. To say the Viper has come a long way in refinement is a vast understatement. Though it's styled in the same spirit as its bulbous ancestor, this freshly carved hunk of Detroit muscle manages to deliver loads more information to the driver, with a cockpit that's luxurious enough to make the old Viper seem like even more of a kit car. But don't let those niceties fool you. Especially when its electronics are disabled, the Viper still has an angry soul and a serious tendency to swap ends. In this age of neutered safety and characterless conformity, the Viper's fearsome wild side is what makes us glad that SRT still builds a 10-cylinder force to be reckoned with. For Car and Driver, I'm Basem Wasef.